I am the watcher. The creatures of the wood are my foot soldiers, the birds of the air my eyes, the hearts of men my map, vengeance my duty. Together we write the path of humanity to the woe of our foe, and often they are the kings on high, but in the dead of night we strike, silent yet deadly is our aim. During the Third Crusade, many kings of the West ventured forth to conquer the sultans of the East. It is during the absence of one King Richard the Elk, his heart stout and pure, that this story begins. The sheriffs and lords began to quarrel. The law of King Richard was twisted and deformed into a mockery of its purpose. It was the Sheriff of ARDONNE that was the aim of our mission. His tyranny was great, yet his kinship with Richard kept him from harm, and the lords acquiesced at his every turn. Should he not be stopped, Richard and his kingdom would be doomed. King Richard the Elk would return to be murdered, if even he would be returned at all. By instilling fear into the lords, the subjects were without recourse. The Sheriff of ARDONNE, third cousin of Richard, was placed into his office before Richard's venture on crusade, an ill-advised venture from the start. The Sheriff of ARDONNE was ambitious and saw a path by murder and character assassinations to the very crown of King Richard. Richard's kingdom was destined to grow in power and prestige. The power of the evil sheriff would be amplified upon the very world. His methods were tried and true: divide the subjects and drive fear into their wavering hearts. The maneuverings of the Sheriff of ARDONNE had prospered to the point that a singular event, the marriage of his cousin Anne to the Duke of Frome, would make him third in line of succession should Richard not return from his eastern ventures. He would not, of course, as the sheriff had complicated fortifications along the highways of the forest and even into the vast countryside. The sheriff's taxation had impoverished ARDONNE, and unwary travelers were met with ruin. The Sheriff of ARDONNE had amassed great wealth in Richard's absence. This wealth he invested into intimidation and fear. The marriage of Anne to the Duke of Frome was the next piece of the puzzle, with checkmate soon to be had. Preparations for the ceremony had begun in earnest. At the gatherings, the lord in attendance would be assassinated, and ARDONNE would have no resistance remaining. It was decided that ridding ARDONNE of the sheriff would not be enough. He must be exposed, naked in his lust for power. The sheriff had arranged for the banquet to be the weapon of his murders. burdock and hemlock added to the wine of the selected lords, and even the wedded couple as well. The burdock and hemlock would take just enough time to claim their effects and hide him from blame. Of course, the teetotaling sheriff would have no need to indulge in the wine. Our efforts, therefore, were on the kitchens of Richard's house, where the feast would be held. The woodsmen, the potters, and the smiths would all be there, all the artisans, and many would suffer from the wine, and the Lord would wither as well. And the sheriff of ARDONNE would name himself king with no opposition. Our plan was simple. We should cause reason to delay the feast, and this would cause the sheriff to resort to the alternative plans. Upon the delay, the sorcerers of the sheriff's employ would be sought to provide more of the recipe for the deadly potion to be added to the wine. I would need the help of the raven and the assistance of the elementals of the forest in my plan, as well as the creatures of the wood. The delay of the feast was arranged by tainting the tea of the sheriff of ARDONNE, causing him to become feverish, and Anne and the Duke of Frome, out of sympathy, delayed the feast to the full moon a fortnight later. The light of the full moon was a godsend to our efforts, as we were able to enlist the aid of the woodsmen as well as the fairies of the forest. Instead of hemlock and burdock, the wretches of the sheriff who were sent to gather the ingredients would be deceived into gathering not the chosen poison. Instead, a counterfeit would be created and concocted. The absence of any ill would rankle the sheriff and force his hand to his own destruction. The sheriff of ARDONNE had one fatal flaw. He was bound by a belief in superstition and perversion. He would often be seen in his nightshirt upon the darkened wood, searching for treasures of sorcerers and alchemists. He was obsessed with achieving immortality. His chants and rituals had aroused the elementals from far and wide. He was keen on disrupting the night dances of the fairies beneath the forest, even daring to chop down the solitary tree in the plain of the fields, the clear domain of the fairies. It is said that such would incur the ire of the fairies upon such fools. Indeed, that was certainly the case here. I had no difficulties in arranging in the assistance of the fairies, although the fairies' loyalties are always suspect. Never in vengeance do they falter. Never are they subdued, and only in this are they united. And united they were against the vile sheriff of ARDONNE. Though he may have subdued the mighty lords of ARDONNE,